Let's now expose the giant hoax today, a hugely dangerous one. Now, the ABC, what do you expect? It's got a shameful history of believing the worst of Israel, but I did expect better of the Prime Minister when he reacted to this ghastly bombing early this morning of a hospital in Gaza. Now, twice today, the Prime Minister suggested, without proof, without evidence, that Israel did this, and was even targeting a crowded hospital, causing hundreds of dead.
We condemn any indiscriminate attacks and targeting of civilian infrastructure, including hospitals.
There's no surprise, of course, that the world's media immediately repeated the spin of the Hamas terrorist group that actually runs Gaza, that it was the Jews that did this. And so did our ABC. It tweeted, Israeli airstrike has killed hundreds of Palestinians at a Gaza hospital crammed with patients and displaced people, health authorities in the besieged enclave say. Does it ever occur to ABC journalists or any other journalists talking to authorities in Gaza that these people might lie? They don't dare tell the truth in an area that's run by terrorists who kill their enemies, who even burn babies alive, as we saw last week. But how sad to see Prime Minister Albanese also imply, I hope accidentally, that Israel was targeting hospitals, because this is feeding the anti-Jewish mob that's already running riot. Now, for a start, why even assume that Israel did it? Bombing hospitals is not in its interest. For one, it would destroy its support in the West. And now the evidence is very strong that it is innocent, and this bombing was caused instead by an Islamic terrorist group which fired a rocket at Israel that malfunctioned and hit the hospital in front of it. Now, I've seen two independent videos, one from a live broadcast by Al Jazeera, showing a rocket fired from Gaza rise in the dark before there's a flash as if there's a malfunction, and seconds later there's an explosion at the hospital below, probably made worse by the fuel it was still carrying. Now, Geo Confirmed, that's an independent internet site that fact-checks videos, said these videos backed Israel's claim that it wasn't to blame. Geo Confirmed says, conclusion, a missile launched by a Palestinian group exploded mid-air, reason unknown, and one piece fell on the hospital, causing the explosion. The geolocation and timing of this footage is conclusive. Well, an hour or so ago, Israel's Defense Forces gave more powerful evidence. It was, in fact, a rocket fired by another terrorist group in Gaza, not Hamas, but the Islamic Jihad.
That there was no direct hit to the hospital itself. The only location damage is outside the hospital, in the parking lot, where we can see signs of burning, no cratering, and no structural damage to nearby buildings.
Yes, we'll look at that car park, no big crater that you would expect from an Israeli bomb. And then there was this intercepted call released by the IDF between two Hamas operatives talking at the time about what had just happened and blaming the Islamic Jihad.
بقول لك أول مرة بنشوف الصاروخ زي هيك والشظايا هذه فبقول لك تبع الجهاد الصواريخ الجهاد الإسلامي هاي. إيه؟ فهم بيقولوا تعاون الجهاد الإسلامي. إنه من عندنا هذا؟ شكله من عندنا مين اللي بيقول هيك؟ بيحكوا إنه الشظايا تبعت الصاروخ إنه الشظايا محلية مش زي شظايا إيش بتقول؟ سبحان الله من عندنا ما لقاش غيرين بجرثبي. عاد هذول تلاقيهم من المقبرة الورا دي بثلاث محط فيهم. ايش اصدر بتلاقيهم طالعين من المقبرة الورا المستشفى المعمداني دي.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Joining me from Israel is Major Doron Spielman, a spokesman for Israel's Defense Forces. Major, thank you so much for your time. That audio that we just heard of intercepts from Hamas operatives admitting it was an Islamic Jihad rocket that hit the hospital, not an Israeli missile or bomb. Can you tell us anything about who these people are and how you obtained that audio?
So first of all, we have, as that audio shows, Hamas terrorists which are fully aware, immediately aware, that this is an Islamic Jihad misfired rocket. It was fired from a cemetery directly behind the hospital, landed on the parking lot of the hospital, not on the hospital itself. And assuming if we would accept Hamas's reports, killed a number of civilians. And as we can see, this is not surprising. Hamas immediately after this reported to the world a lie that this was Israel. And this is just one more example where Hamas, who doesn't care about murdering, doesn't think twice about murdering small children and destroying families, doesn't care. They have no qualms about lying to the world. And that's what this audio receives. We also have video, and this was received by our intelligence forces.
Just to let our viewers know that we're having trouble getting a good picture of you through the internet connection, so that's why we're seeing so much overlay. Major, if this is a jihadist missile that just hit that car park, where did all those victims come from that we've been seeing on TV?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure. Again, the loss of any civilian life is a tragedy. I don't want to see Gazan civilians killed. I certainly don't want to see Israeli civilians killed, which Hamas benefits from either of them being killed. But I would assume we're going to have to really verify this story. Hamas immediately said it was 500 civilians who were killed in this, and we can't really believe anything they say. It's very difficult. And the problem is, as you had mentioned, many media outlets, not you, but many other media outlets immediately went out to the public with Hamas, a terror organization that resembles ISIS, with their report of the incident. Where we on the Israeli side, we looked at our intelligence footage, we spoke to the highest level officers before we verified it in 10 different checks that this was not us. So that's the imbalance of this game. This is the double standard that's taking place here right now.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? How do you explain how so many journalists there, some in Gaza, but most in Israel, are so quick to believe that Israel did it before any evidence is in?
Well, you know, this is really something that's part of Hamas's cycle of terror. We've seen it many times. And like you had said so eloquently, many of the press fall into it. Essentially, Hamas launches an attack with rockets, massacre civilians. They then, the second stage is they run back into Gaza, barricade themselves deeper, and so the families go to sleep upstairs, directly in, of course, any target right away. Then, if civilians are killed, God forbid, Hamas waves a flag and says that there's a humanitarian crisis as a result of Israel. The international community tells Israel to stop. Hamas rebuilds and carries out another massacre. This is this ongoing Hamas cycle of violence, which really is based upon deceiving the international community. How they get away with this is really difficult for us to understand. We're hoping that other journalists who do accurate reporting like yourself will help and aid and find the truth and stop this cycle from happening.
Hamas has got it all in its favour. If Israelis die, they win, and if Palestinians die, they still win. But the damage is done. I mean, you get your side of the story out, but a lot of people in Muslim countries will not be allowed to hear it. So, unfortunately, there it is, the whirlwind. Your aim in this operation now, which is still stalled, you still haven't done a land invasion, but you have done bombings and things like that. Your aim is to destroy Hamas. What damage so far have you done?
So we've been carrying out a number of airstrikes at specific military targets. Just last night, we neutralized 2 more top Hamas commanders from that same force that were involved in the massacre in Israel, one of their top intelligence commanders and their commander of central Gaza. So we've taken out a number of their kind of mobster heads of this terror regime. We've also hit much of their infrastructure, their arms piles, their silos. They have aerial defense systems that they've hidden, of course, to great surprise, inside water heaters, on top of buildings and satellites. So we've managed satellite dishes. We've managed to strike a lot of this infrastructure. However, as you mentioned, they're still forcing their civilians to stay there. We've called on all their civilians for days now to move out of the way, and hundreds of thousands have moved. But Hamas has no qualms about killing their own civilians. And we know they're holding them there. We have evidence at gunpoint trying to keep them in our way. But in any case, we know they started this war. We're going to finish this war by destroying Hamas. We will get there. It might take some time, but we will make that, we will achieve that goal.
Now, Major Doron Spielman, Maybe I watch too much James Bond, too many episodes of Fauda, but I always wonder, you know, you've got the Hamas leadership sitting there in Qatar. They're way out, safely out of harm's way. They're just sitting there in their offices, giving little press conferences or whatever. You know, is it really that impossible to assassinate them?
Well, first of all, I think you make a very important point. IDF colonels, commanders, a number of them have been killed. Military leaders, certainly they're all in Israel. And second of all, many of them are in the field, and even a number of them have been killed. There's a sense of honor and pride in Israel that our commanders are with us in the field, where we see with Hamas and Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah to the north that their leadership are safely watching TV in some foreign terrorist country. We see it again and again while their people are dying on the streets. And that is truly another tragedy, another kind of, I would say, evidence of their cowardice in sending their people off to, you know, be slaughtered. We have said very clearly, anyone that was involved in this massacre, we will not forget where they are. They will have to look over their shoulder for the rest of their lives. And we will do anything that we need to do in order to make sure that at some point they are neutralized in the future and Hamas is completely disabled. That goes for wherever they are and at any time.
Yeah, except of course you don't really want to set Qatar on the wrong course here when they're an intermediary with the hostages, but I get that, but still. Just finally, Major Spielman, we're told that Israel, I want to knock off another myth here, we're told that Israel is starving people in Gaza with the blockade. But then today I'm seeing pictures of trucks and trucks and trucks of food at the Rafah gate, which is on the Egyptian border with Gaza. There's a gate there into Gaza. Is Israel stopping them from going in?
No, we are doing everything we can to get humanitarian aid supplies to the civilians of Gaza. We've given them days of notice. We've encouraged them to leave the area fighting. That is according to international law, what you're supposed to do. What is affecting the well-being in Gaza more than anything else is the fact that Hamas are forcing so many of them to stay within a war zone where they don't have access. First of all, their lives are in danger. Second of all, they don't have access to critical supplies. And the international community, those reports need to be focusing on the fact that the biggest humanitarian disaster in Gaza is Hamas. They are the ones that have repeated humanitarian disasters year after year. They take supplies that are given them for humanitarian aid. And I witnessed yesterday how a number of them were made into RPGs and into grenade launching canisters, simple materials that were given to them for building hospitals. Hamas is the humanitarian problem, and that's what has to be stopped in Gaza.
Major Doron Spielman, thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it.